guys. Thanks for joining us.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
We will take some time till everybody joins. So meanwhile, just please use the chat. Tell us if you can hear us well. Tell us where are you joining from, so we can let few minutes for people to come in. We have here, if you see, we are using Crowdcast for this whole webinar, and if just feel free to use the ask a question button whenever within the webinar you have questions. Also, you can cast them into comments, so that later on, if we are looking at the whole recording, we can jump into the question if you want to be more efficient. So guys, thanks a lot for waking up so early and joining us. It's quite exciting webinar, because we have a lot of people who registered interested in this topic. So how to expand your business internationally, especially tech businesses, and you are the gurus of this. So if you can present yourself a bit before we jump in, so we can get to know each other a little bit before. So ladies first, Loredana, you have the floor.
Okay, so nice to meet you all. I hope that I already know some of you, so thanks for joining and accepting our invitation. I'm happy to also introduce Greg and Ken. Greg is a dear friend and business partner, and Ken is also a new addition to the team in the States, which we'll find out more about in the webinar. Should we start, Romeo, with the formal presentations until everybody
a little bit, Ken and Greg, if you can present yourself a little bit before we jump in. So, and meanwhile, the people are joining also the webinar. So, Greg, Ken, any of you, if you want to say a few words about yourself.
After you, Ken, always.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Romeo. Thanks, Loredana. Yeah, I'm pleased to be part of the team here in Boston. I bring over 25 years of B2B marketing experience in a number of areas. And I've had an opportunity to work with international companies, both as the U.S. representative for a couple of companies, one based in Luxembourg, the other based in Switzerland, as well as I was part of the corporate team at Progress Software, where I worked with our international partners in rolling out programs around the world. So I've had experience in that area. Lately, most of my focus has been on digital marketing and marketing automation services, and glad to answer any questions that you have. Thanks.
We will have definitely a lot of questions. Thanks a lot. Like, that's really good. Guys, prepare the questions around marketing automation, because it's something exciting. Greg, if you...
All right, so I come from a little different direction while here in the Boston area now. I grew up in Philadelphia, and I went to college in New York State. And then I lived in Florida for a long time. And now for 21 years, I'm in the Boston market. So besides demonstrating that I'm old, I share this because no different than in any other country, in any other state, any other geography around the world, every city, every area acts a little differently. And so I think it's important to think about that. Business climate, acceptance of international people, the food, the cost, availability of workers is all very different. And so often as a longtime recruiter, I find people in very interesting places and I ask them why. And I learned that it's because maybe they found some people from their homeland, or maybe their first customer was in that spot, and that's how they landed in the area that they are. So I think those are really important to think about as you think about expanding internationally, and we can talk more about those as the day goes on, or our hour goes on. But professionally, I've run retail stores. I ran a propane gas company, and for the last 20 years, I've focused on recruiting and human resources and recruiting technologies. So after all, when I started in this business, you know, we used whiteout to cover up the names on resumes, and we broadcast them via fax across the town. So I've been doing this a long time, and quite frankly, the basics haven't really changed a lot. And so I like to say I have two sets of clients. You know, one is the client themselves who pays the bills, and the other is the person who I'm working with. Because those are the people that I make friends with and I get referrals with, and who eventually become my clients. And this is how I became initially friends with Loredana. We were referred to one another through a mutual person that she was doing business with, and now we are doing business. So I welcome your questions at the end, and look forward to helping out as we can.
Thanks, Greg. Like a lot of experience in one place. So for sure we will have a bunch of questions for you guys. So now, because the crowdcast system is a bit, it lets us only share 4 screens in the same time. What we will do is that one of us will drop out and later on will join, so that we can share the screen also, the presentation. I just have 3 slides for you, and then I will pass over to Loredana. So 1 second, guys. Let me. Ken, I will remove you, and then later on you will jump in. And please, if there are questions, you can answer them directly in the chat itself. Okay. So let me share my screen, guys. Just a bit to tell you what we do here. Great. Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Great. So I just want to tell you what we do at the end of the day. Like with this whole growth webinars, what we want to do is help you build those B2B funnels for your tech business. So this is our ultimate goal with these webinars. And these webinars are powered by the guys from SODA, which is the Software Development Association. We really thank them for this, because they are helping us with content, with the community, and promoting the events. But just few words about what are all these growth webinars about. So it's mainly tailored for software houses and B2B. We are definitely marketing BS free, so we are not doing this for marketing stuff. We want to build a community, and all the people who are invited are from the community. And it's taught by practitioners, so it's not theory. These people are doing what they are preaching, and also it's mainly B2B focused. I am facilitating these whole webinars. I am sales by heart, but in a marketing body. So I'm doing 10 years this, and I love doing training and learning and development. And I did it in different corporate and international organizations. Later on, I will tell you a little bit more about the community that we are building and other cool stuff. So stay tuned. And by that, I will close it and leave it to Loredana. Loredana, you can share the screen now if you want, and then you can jump into the presentation. You can tell us all the goodies so that we can cast the questions.
Okay, so please confirm that you can all see my screen.
Yes, we can see it. It's perfect.
Okay, amazing. So hello again, everyone, especially the ones that joined a bit later. I am Loredana Niculae. I'm an entrepreneur with multiple businesses. I actually own right now 3 businesses that are already international. I wouldn't say that I own them, but I'm actually part of the shareholders. And some of these companies also are involved in other companies. So there's like maybe a holding structure is too much said when we talk about different companies. But anyway, so companies that I'm a part of are part of our companies. What I can say is that my passion is all around marketing and business development. We at NNC, the company that I represent in this conversation and in the relationship with Greg and the one that we went with early on in the States, I'm the founder. In 2006, we founded the company. And in 2011, we went early on to the US following one of our customers, which was a tech business. We work, I think, more than 80 to 90% of our portfolio are tech businesses, software and services, especially development companies. And we have these companies grow on international territories. However, the presentation of today is about how we expanded. What are some of the models to expand your business internationally? And I hope that you'll get quite a lot of value. I'm not sure, can you tell me if you've been to the SODA conference in Katowice?
In Katowice, it was a SODA conference where the presentation.
Of course.
Some people said, of course.
Okay, Radek. So you'll see that this has some new information to it. But for most of you that you have not been there, I look forward to receiving your feedback. The question is, why go international with your business? And I know it sounds funny because originally, with the mentality of an entrepreneur, especially going on to the US markets and other international markets, I was like, who doesn't want to go international, right? Like for me, this is the thing to do. But actually, I found out, even at the SODA conference in Katowice, that people, especially in Poland, which is good, are a bit cautious about taking this next step. So I was like a bit surprised to find out that not everyone understands what is international business and why go international with your business. So international business means that you actually have activities where you commercialize goods, services, resources, people, whatever, and technologies across country borders. What that means is that you don't actually have to have a physical presence on the new market to have an international business. So you don't have to be big, you don't have to be global. Like even the fact that you have a business with another company that's situated in another country, that means you already do international business. And I know that for this, most of the people react positive. So most every business manager or owner wants to develop international business relations, right? But that means having an international business. Now, why would you want to go to other markets? I think most people are aware that, you know, you can get more clients or you can reduce the risk that's associated, let's say, with inflation, especially in less developed countries, or with political risks, which I even heard from some of our Polish customers, or the fact that sometimes your business locally plateaus. So even if you do a good job, like nobody can have, even from a good market, more than like 20 to 40%. So you want to develop onto new markets. But there's also sometimes businesses that are flourishing outside the country, but you can never replicate them within your own domestic country. So these are some of the best basic needs. Now, what I'm very excited about is usually the advanced, let's say, opportunities that are presented when you decide to go international with your business, which is, for example, you can get like really big key accounts. Like it may not be necessarily a really big company, but the business that you do with them can be quite large, right? So you can secure quite a good business. Or you can create strategic partnerships. Like, for example, me and Greg here, our partnership happened because we went to the States. Or you can create joint ventures. Or one thing that we did, for example, we brought some good know-how back home because marketing was much more advanced in the States when we went there. So we took that a lot of learnings and requests from our customers, and we were able to, let's say, ramp up our processes, our teams, our know-how based on this, let's say, level up that the customers imposed. You can get funding in the US, for example, if you have a product or a software as a service offering and you want to get financing. Right now, the situation is getting better, and I know that in Poland you have quite good financing opportunities. But to give you an example, a company in Europe, even in good markets like France, usually gets a valuation that's 5 to 10 times lower than if they would be in the Silicon Valley, right? For the same thing. So many companies, for example, if they have a really good product or software as a service offering, they decide to go to the Silicon Valley or to establish business in the US just because of the valuation is much higher, right? Mm-hmm. The VC competition, the capital, everything. Like when I first went to US, I had this idea that there's money everywhere and that I can do 10 times the business that I'm doing back home. To give you a bit of an idea, I'm originally from Romania, and right now NNC is spread across Romania, Poland, US, Austria, and we also do business in most Eastern Europe and Western Europe, but we don't necessarily have offices there. And in the US, we have an office in Boston. So that's why I think that it would be a good idea to go to other markets. And again, there are some basic needs that you fill in, but the fun part is the most advanced opportunities that this presents. And I know that this part is rather intuitive, but as you expect in technology, can you confirm that most of the people that we have invited today are from technology? Can we have like a
yes. So guys, we have a poll. So if you press the button in Crowdcast, we have a few questions. So what side of the company and what you guys do? So that could help us a little bit understand what you're doing. So if you're SaaS, software house, or another company. So what we see is that is software house and other and two people from SaaS also.
Okay, it's amazing because then this is also useful, but it's with a give and take. So I'll tell you what this is about. So 31% of the global IT spending is done in the States. 11% is out of this is just software, okay? 22% is devices and 21% is IT and business services, okay? In Europe, the market, of course, as you expect, is a bit smaller. Now, what I want you to be careful about is that if you have an enterprise B2B software, product, or service, 50% of the global enterprise IT software spending is done in the US. So you must be there, right? However, for a small company, even small niche markets, for example, maybe even if they are not in the States, may be appropriate to look at. For example, it may be that you have a company that is doing better in emerging markets, right? So you have a specific product that solves some challenging in emerging markets. So even if it's, I don't know, Albania, sorry guys, I have a bit of a flu. So even if it's Albania, you will have a good market if you know that your product is well positioned there, and you may have even less competition. I'll go on mute now to fix my voice for a bit. Sorry about that.
Don't worry. Yeah, so as I see here, it's quite of a big number in terms of US.
Okay, so going back. So again, don't necessarily look at this as a, I don't know, there's this story that I said even at the conference where I mentioned that there was this company that was going to, like a shoemaker from the UK that was going to India, I think was the story. And he sent 2 salespeople, and he said, go there and see if people have, need shoes, and we have a market. One of the salespeople came back, and he's like, these people don't wear shoes. I don't think we have a market. We're doomed there. Let's not go there. And the other one came back and said, oh my God, the opportunity for us is huge because these people don't have shoes. So
Exactly.
the whole market is ours, right? So again, don't disregard smaller market where you may have lower competition. If you know your position really well and you know where you add most value, Asia, it's amazing right now and it's still rising, or South America, or even Africa. We have customers that do amazing business in Kenya, for example, right? So don't disregard smaller markets just because the numbers don't look. However, especially for companies that are born global, it's very important if you're into B2B enterprise space to be in the States, okay? Everything clear so far?
Yeah, for sure.
I think everyone is familiar with the classic stage model, meaning that, you go somewhere, you open an office, then you hire people, then actually it takes you a couple of years until you have a steady business. This is the most expensive one. And I might add that for the profile of the people that I see are present today, it may not be a suitable model, right? Yeah. Because if you want to be agile, if you have to finance it from your own cash flow or from little, let's say, seed funding or something, this is not a great model. So what I advise is to looking into other ways to expand your business. I call this newer economy. There's not a technical term for it, but I think that you can use your network, and please explore your network. Like in our domain, J. Abraham, for example, is very well known for saying that if you give me your list of contacts, I can increase your business. I can double your business this year. In Poland in particular, I think people are not using their network of contacts to a max, meaning that I use sometimes, the contacts our suppliers have, right? Let's say their clients or their suppliers, or I use college friends, or I use people that worked for the company at some point, or I use this network to help promote good ideas. In the States, most business it's done in a networking model. I would dare say networking, most serious business is done from a referral base. We'll see later on how trust plays a very important role, and how it's very important to build this trust by referral basis.
You believe that? Because we can see that we as Eastern European maybe feel that if we do this and we market ourselves and our services via our contact list, we are considered a bit too arrogant. So compared to the US, where it's something very natural. So we don't market ourselves because we have this idea that it's arrogant to do that.
Greg, do you want to add something here? I feel like you are the one to add good value here.
Well, I do. I think in all parts of our lives, it's I may be sometimes unfortunate that it's about who you know or who can help you. And I think often, to Romeo's point, maybe we're afraid to ask. And I think you should never be afraid to ask, because if you don't ask, you can't find out the answer. And somebody who may not have the answer can bring you to someone else who has the answer. So I think it's okay. I think it's a good thing to go out to your network and be sure they understand what you're up to.
But I have a question regarding this, because it's always, I get it also from clients, like, Okay, I think everybody talks about building your network, and obviously in terms, especially in B2B marketing, this is like the strategy that can bring you a lot of leads and customers. But if I want to build this relationship and I am in Poland, or I am in Czech Republic or Hungary, do I need to go in US to build these relationships, or how can I expand it? How can I do it more efficiently? I'm really curious about this, because not all of us are able to maybe, especially at the beginning, start building this network in the US if we are here.
I think it really depends on a number of factors. I believe that it's with cloud computing and SaaS software, it's more common to be working with people in different places. It's more common for the sales cycles not to be in person. And so if it's a service or a product that requires you to be in person in front of someone to do a different type of demonstration, that might be a reason to have someone here or an agent here who's representing you. I speak to people all over the world, looking at their software, talking to them about their services, and I personally don't have a tremendous pushback. I think there's a lot of diligence to do that might be different if someone was located here. For instance, where is the software located? Where is it being served from, and so forth. I really think it depends on the business, but I always believe a face-to-face, knowing that someone's within the country or within the continent is nice to have. It's helpful, but it's not overly urgent. But it really depends on how you present yourself.
Okay.
I think, Romeo, that this is a huge topic, and we can spend the whole webinar just about this. Sure. But just to add something, I think that there are, as Greg mentioned, there are things like SaaS business for user acquisition. You don't necessarily need to be in the States. However, I think that when going abroad, you have to go in person. Mm-hmm. Greg, what do you think? I think that this is, for the States in particular, I've noticed that this is very important.
Well, no question. Having met you, having a relationship even with your husband and his business, it's been, it means a lot, right? It means a lot to have met you. It means a lot to have come to Romania to meet you and see your operations there. And these are things that build a tighter relationship in the long run. There's no question about it. And lots of companies come to the United States to visit, or maybe there's a trade show they participate in. And if so, while you're here, I would always suggest take some extra time, get out and meet people. I hear from people all the time, hey, I'm in Boston, I'm visiting clients, or I'm at a trade show, or I'm doing some meetings, can I see you? Can I have lunch or something like this? And those are important. Just even if it's a quick meeting, to just put a name and a face with your prospect and get to know them personally means a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
we can go on, Loredana.
Okay.
Because we are taking some time here with.
Yep. So, what are some of the questions that you need to consider? Of course, please look if there is the specific market for your product or service. What are your limitations of time? For example, it may be that if this doesn't work out in 6 months, then we'll drop it, let's say. Please consider when moving to a new market, even though you can find an agile way to expand to the new market, maybe you have to envision it long term, right? So don't go there just for quick short-term profit, but try to establish like a long-term vision for the new geography of your destination, okay? And also an important thing is to figure out from start what you invest and what you want to get out of it. I was showing some examples of the rule of 3 and the rule of 5. So for example, for us, we establish a local office whether or one of these conditions are met, meaning that if we have 5 sizable client accounts, and or if we have 5 people in a new territory, we open a real office there. This is how we decided to open the office in Warsaw, for example. Or in the US, we had many customers before we opened the Boston office. Now, there is also the other rule, which means please mitigate your risk by not going just after one vertical or go into more than one country at the time to mitigate your risk, right? Go one by one. Don't go at them, like go focus. Don't go at 3 new countries at the same time, but don't go just to the US or just to the UK and expect that all the business will come out of there, right? Because that country may suffer Brexit and then your business may be critically impacted. The barriers you need to overcome. I think that language and cultural barriers are some of the most important to overcome. Please spend quite a good time to understand the differences between cultures and be aware of them. I'm not saying that you have to change your business or your product, although sometimes you may need to, but be aware, for example, of how important it is in the States, since we're talking about the States, to build trust. As you see in the US, the trust factor is very important. Some people are not very trustworthy upfront, which means that you have to gain someone's trust. Coming from a very friendly culture, where everybody embraces everybody else at the party, even if you don't know them, right? Like you're on the kissing basis with everyone at a new party. It was very interesting for me that in the US, I had to gain someone's trust, right? So it wasn't just the fact that I'm there and I have someone's trust. So please be aware of these cultural differences. However, there's many studies that show that with the same job, let's say, or role in a company, it's not that different across different countries. So I'm more different, let's say, from a teenager in Eastern Europe than from, let's say, Ken, right, that's doing marketing automation in the US. It seems that job and career paths and especially vertical specialization brings us into a similar culture more than age does, right? Age culture does. So please be aware of this, embody it into or incorporate it into your strategy, but don't make, let's say, a big fuss out of it, or I won't go to, I don't know, Japan just because cultural differences that I perceive are big. I put some tools here. This is new because I have many questions about this. So there's quite a few tools that you can use. Erin Meyer has an amazing cultural map that dynamically displays how you can, input different cultures, and you can also use it for example, if you have, you want to align your business culture with client business culture between companies. So you can use that tool. Of course, government and politics and legal and regulatory, these are really show breakers. So you have to know the law where you're going, right? So if I'm going to the UK, I cannot drive as I am driving into Poland, right? Because I only ruin my car all the time. So please be aware that you have to have good legal advice and good bookkeeping procedures when doing international business. Also, I would say that find a way to stay up to date with the regulatory news of the new country, either by subscribing to a service, an information service, or by asking your bookkeeping service or your legal service to help you with news, because things are changing all the time. For example, intellectual property licensing, labor regulations can be a showbreaker in some countries. So please make sure you are mindful of this. Of course, that a barrier that not too many people are seeing, especially in at this stage of the company, is usually the product service adoption, which is very different with each country. Also because, for example, some countries embrace more. We in Eastern Europe, even Poland, embraces quite well foreign technology, while in Germany or in the US, people, I think, prefer local-based technology because of the reasons that Greg mentioned, right? So, they know where this is done. They trust that it's according to workflows or let's say mentality that they're used to. So please understand that this is important, and you need to understand what value your product brings and to see if the adoption would be similar to what you expect, okay? So what are your next steps? Understand your market and definitely personalize your communications. I'm just going to ask Greg, how difficult it is for him to understand me every time we talk. So Greg, can you please share some of your thoughts?
Well, I think because of time differences, we're at different stages of day and often different stages of our degree of tiredness. So towards the end of my day, you're still working when it's maybe 10, 11 o'clock at night, and you start to write in Romanian and half English, half Romanian, and so forth. But from a language perspective, I have a unique advantage because although I don't speak many languages, my father was an immigration attorney growing up. So it seemed that we always had someone from a different place at our dinner table when I was a child. And so I think I've become just very accepting and used to focusing and understanding different people's accents. So I find it fascinating. I think that's true that not everyone does, and that you need to be careful of their, I guess, the curve of their appreciating. That maybe you state something a little differently than intended sometimes, or there's a different way to interpret. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I think it's smart to understand your audience and their understanding of your culture, of your language, and it does. It takes a little bit of appreciation and a learning curve.
I think that more than this, even if we believe we know English, we don't know the subtleties of the language, and we don't have the same feeling of the language that the native does. For example, when we try to expand to the UK market, for us and for some of our clients, we had really amazing conversation up front, but this wasn't moving into business. And we found out later on with a partner that's local that we call this happy talk. And it's the same in the US, if I'm not mistaken, where you have a great conversation with someone, but there's no outcome, right? But only a native knows this very subtle difference between having a positive conversation and something that actually drives business, right? So what I think is that you have to personalize your communication with the help of someone that's there. And you have to maybe use your network of contacts, your relationships, and so on to have a local footprint. So, for example, have someone like Greg and Ken to help you understand these market differences and to personalize your communication, make it real for the people there, and help you understand the feedback from the market. Develop a prospect space, and I will let Ken talk a bit if we still have time. So Romeo, if you know.
Yeah, we still have around 5 to 10 minutes, and then Q&A.
Okay, so I will let Ken speak a bit about, you know, what it takes in the US to market your business, because there are, let's say, some specifics in there. There's a lot of business done via channels, right? So not as we're used to. So just soliciting business may, you know, if you do it mass marketing, but more and more is going into channel business, into channel partners, into direct networking at quality events, and so on. So you have to do, let's say, this acquiring prospect space, I would say, even before deciding to go to the new market. So what I used to do and still am doing when I have to develop a new market, and this is why we managed to do some of the markets, but some others we didn't, is that I went there. I tried to develop a prospect base with real prospects and to find out from them what is the market situation before I even decided if we want to move into that market, to see, do I find an open culture? Do I find, will people be receptive of this business, and so on? So maybe I will stop sharing my screen for a sec here.
Yes, and I invite now Ken on the screen.
Yep.
Ken should get the... yes, so he's accepting now. Yes, so this is a very important point. Hi, Ken.
Hi guys, how are you?
We were talking a lot with also my clients. They were asking, okay, what should we do? Should we develop first the content marketing strategy, and should we have all the inbound marketing set up, or should we first go in that market, do some prospecting, have actually this channel-based marketing, or what should be our first step if we go into US? So this is the a question.
Sure. So I think having that, developing your strategy and how you want to go to market is very important first. Like Greg talked about, establishing relationships and getting to know people, whether it's going to conferences or being involved in associations like SOTA, and there are many of them in the US. I think it is, the other thing that's important is are you a software development house, or do you have a product? If you have a product, then there are many different channels to go there. For instance, the marketing technology space is incredibly hot. There are over 7,000 products, and there are a number of different ways to get your product to market. For instance, HubSpot and SalesForce have very large application marketplaces, so you can have be involved in the infrastructure and be involved in the community without being physically in the US. Salesforce allows you to indicate, where you work. In HubSpot, for instance, you can say, you do business in different countries. Loredana certainly knows that you don't have to have a physical presence with HubSpot to be a partner, and that you can work with folks that way. There are also, if you have specific industries or verticals, it's important to understand the people and the companies involved in understanding who the major players are and where your opportunities are. So I think it's worth taking the time first to do your research, to understand, and to kind of stick your toe in the water. Try to establish some relationships. Do some public relations, try to, float some balloons, as they say in politics, and see what is, what is popular and what is not. The other thing in working with, if you're not sure on communications and culture, as Loredana was talking about, it's very important. When I was at Progress Software, we had, made it very important that we work with our local representatives in the not just use translation services, but use a local sales or marketing person who knows the product as well as the market to understand and translate the documentation, because how a translator from France may translate your product to US is not how they're going to read it in Quebec, for instance. Or Spanish in Spain is much different than Mexican Spanish, or Spanish in Los Angeles, or Spanish in Colombia, or every market is very specific. So it's important to have partnerships and have people who understand, especially if you have a technical product, how those technical specifications relate, and knowing what the legal qualifications. For instance, we talk about GDPR in Europe. In January, CCPA, which is the California version of GDPR, goes into effect with very similar requirements that will affect anybody doing business in California, which is everybody. So those regulations have gone global, even more so.
If you have questions, meanwhile, you can put them in the chat so I can address them. But Ken, can you tell us? We have a lot of software houses here, and our audience are mainly software houses. Obviously, everybody wants to go into US. They want clients from the US, right?
Sure.
So there are medium-sized enterprise, let's say 50 developers. What one should do? Like, how should they start? Right? Maybe they have some clients they had some clients in the US in the past, maybe not. What should be the first things that they should do in terms of marketing themselves to the US market?
Sure. Have a great website. Number one, most important thing. You have to have the storefront. You have to have the image. People don't obviously know where your company is based. If you have a great image, you have customers' stories to tell, and you present yourself right, your first impression is the most important. That to me is number one. You also need to provide sales support materials, case studies, documentation. So when you start the sales process, there are lots of business development and sales outsourcing organizations in the United States that can help you generate leads if you don't have the network there. But you have to give them tools and you have to give them training. So those to me are the number one steps.
Okay, with content marketing, without content marketing, how do I go? Let's say I have all this. Do I invest in content marketing, or it's more like I go and try to knock on the doors and try to get the clients that way?
If you have the budget to do content marketing, it definitely brings in better quality leads. People can find you, but it takes time to ramp it up. So if you had $1 to spend, I would probably do it on sales and business development to get it started, as long as you have a good website. And then you can develop that content. Start with blogging. It's less expensive to do that. Do webinars like this, record them. Now you have a nice content piece for that. You can do an ebook. You can do content fairly inexpensively, but you need to have a plan. And you need to have, I think, customer stories. So, horse before the cart, but sales are important to establish a few opportunities. If you have to give some money away, if you have to find a beta tester in the US market, establish a relationship, do that first. So once you have somebody saying good things about you, then you can go. And find a partner in the US to work with. There are lots of international companies doing business. I've known some great companies from all over the world. Progress Software, when I worked there, they started their business in Cambridge, Mass. They found a partner in Rotterdam. And when I went to work there, their European EMEA business was bigger than the US business. So it's how you develop your business.
We have a question from Christian. When or if should we consider hiring a salesperson in the respective market as opposite to traveling there ourselves periodically? So
let me answer this, because so I think that when you have more than 60 days spend into the new country, this is when you need to consider it, because traveling doesn't worth it anymore. I would rather relocate one of the people in the company in the new territory, because, for example, for us, it was pretty difficult until the partnership with Greg, and now we have Ken on board. But it was very difficult to catch ground there just because we were traveling. We thought it's the same like in Europe where you can just hire someone, but it's not. People don't want to be the first, let's say, person in the company, or there's few with an entrepreneurship background, at least in our space. And if so, they already probably have their business. So they didn't want it to join a new European company that's just opening up in the States and so on. So even though we wanted to hire someone, it was very challenging. So I think that I've seen this model with quite a few of our customers now, where they relocate even the CEO or one of the main partners in the company there for quite a few years, not a little time and not a small commitment to do. And then they ramp up the team. And then after, let's say, having a team on board for at least a year, this is the moment when they can go back home or they can discover a new territory. I hope this answers your question, but if Greg has a different opinion, please share it.
No, I think your answer is perfect.
Another question I have is regarding SaaS, because we can see more and more like funding from in Eastern Europe, like especially that there are more and more EU funds that are invested in venture capital, and we can see that in Poland, we can see that in Romania, and many of these companies consider even building their whole marketing, their whole sales in the US, and that's one of the strategy. Would you go that road? So you get you get some funding, you know that you want on the US, and then you completely move all the sales and marketing in US, or you would consider first, you know, trying the, you know, testing the waters, and then later on moving there? Like, which approach would you take if the budget, let's say, it's not necessarily an issue at the beginning, but you can burn that money fast?
Okay.
I think I would suggest that it really depends on the product and what the target marketplace is. If it's absolutely, you know,
in this case, I even have the example, enterprise SaaS. Yeah, like enterprise SaaS, medical tech, HR tech. These are the fintech.
And those are all very busy marketplaces with lots of people fighting for that spend. Yet, if it's something really unique in HR tech, or if it's something that you maybe have a contact here or a channel, as Ken mentioned, that fits your product really well, then sure. I think it's so long as it's tested and it's proven, and if you need to do that in your homeland, then fine. But if the market isn't there and the market's only here, then you may have no choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I would agree with Greg. I think product quality and technology are the number one thing. If you have a great product with a unique technology that's a disruptor, then yeah, you should go for it. You know, security is really important in every sector right now. You know, the U.S. federal government still has not embraced cloud, so don't waste your time in that market. But there's lots of markets that do. But know the technology. The other thing that's really important is customer support. Can you provide global customer support? Can you deal with the time differences? And do you have people who can speak in the local language and communicate your whatever your support requirements are to support that market? That's often one area that brings a lot of companies down.
Mm-hmm. We have time for one more question because we are already 1 hour, even though the time went very fast. I didn't even just see now that it's 1 hour. So Christian has a question. Should we offer our service for free for a period in order to gain the trust of a new potential client?
I think I can. So Christian, do you have a software as a service, or is it a custom software development?
Christian works for a big corporation.
Okay, but what do they do? Do you know?
In software, yeah, in software.
So custom development, right?
Mm-hmm. SaaS.
Oh, SaaS. Okay. So SaaS, I actually have a very good presentation for you with the freemium model and what does it mean as a pricing model for SaaS. If you can connect via LinkedIn, I can share that with you, or I can send it to you, Romeo, and you can share that later on. And the freemium model has pluses and minuses. And it's definitely a topic for a good webinar, Romeo, if you want. At some point. It's one of my areas of focus, so we can share more. But in this case, I would say that for the US, freemium is a good model. Depends very much because it doesn't work in the enterprise space, right? So if your SaaS is addressed to small, medium-sized businesses, and it's not like the customer value is less than $5,000 per year, then yes, you can definitely offer freemium. But if it's more, then you go into higher and higher touches of the customer, and you need a different strategy, and that doesn't work with freemium. So I hope this answers shortly, but I can send you that presentation where there's a lot of information, and you can...
We can send an email with the recording and also with this.
Yeah, sure.
Great. Thanks a lot for this. So one more question, how we can get in touch with you if we have more questions or if we would like to expand to US at the end of the day. So do you have, can we share in the email your LinkedIn? Can we get in touch with your LinkedIn? Is that something can we have your consent that we can add you on LinkedIn?
Most definitely. Network is where it goes. I would be happy to know you and hear from you and make your acquaintance.
Yeah, cool. Okay. So I will also share I will also want to just share my screen. I have 2 more slides. We end with that, and thanks a lot again for joining, and keep in touch on the whole networking and on LinkedIn. I just want to tell you a little bit about our community that we are building. Because this is very important for keeping in touch. So we are building a community with software houses and SaaS. So it's invitation only. We want to have people like Ken, Loredana, and also Greg, so we can get in touch there. We can have more question around it. And also along this, we are also building this 6-week B2B marketing mentorship program, especially for software houses, where we want to deliver also the modules online, like the training, and have the community along that. So with that, what we do is that you submit also based on what you learn, you submit the task or activities, so we can feedback it. We can have this feedback loop, and we can take you by the hand. And if I cannot do it, I bring people like Loredana to help you in that, and also have these coaching calls together. So if it's something that interests you, just drop a line, and I can help you with that. It's also a button that will be now at on the Crowdcast, and you can just see that particular course. Thanks a lot for all of you. Have a great holidays and New Year's Eve, and let's keep in touch. I'm sure that in the community we will have a bunch of things to learn from these amazing people. Thanks a lot again, Loredana, Greg, Ken, and let's keep in touch.
Thank you, Romeo.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you, guys. Thanks.